this is one of the current projects that I'm working on, and I'm very excited to share it with you. So first, my name is María Hernández-Ojeda. I teach in the Romance Languages department. I see Diana and Monica around here. My area is 20th century Spanish literature, and I also study the relationship, literary and cultural relationship between the Canary Islands and the Americas, particularly the Caribbean. So this COIL project that I will discuss now is, I believe, is collaborative, is inclusive, it's global and interdisciplinary, right? And next, Julie. So in spring 2022, one of my classes for Spanish majors teamed up with students from the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria in Spain. They analyzed a poetic text together in groups. And that's why the point that Julie made earlier about not being formalized, you know, this type of activities and projects not being formalized is very important, because it was just an agreement between the professor in that class and myself. So this is the work I will discuss today. Next. Julie already gave the definition that Sarah provided of what a COIL project is, right? It's fundamentally students' work based on interaction, intercultural communication. No? It connects students from different countries, and it encourages collaboration, creativity, and teamwork. So there are many types and examples of international interaction, as my colleague Olivera will talk later too. But my class, this assignment that I'm going to discuss focused on an online work group project. Next. So how was this project conceptualized? Well, I knew a colleague from a university in Spain who taught courses with similar topics. We had common interests. So identifying identifying a colleague, a collaborator to work with is the first crucial step when you're trying to create this type of activity and project, you know, a COIL project. Next. It was easy for me, right? It was not difficult. My colleagues know Herman. I already knew Herman Santana Perez from past conferences. We study similar topics. He is a history professor, and I teach literature and language. So we are in different fields, but coming from different disciplines, it's actually quite fruitful, in my opinion. It proved quite fruitful. It became, you know, the project became interdisciplinary, as you will see now, as I will explain later. Next. So this is the assignment. No, the assignment is a document that we wanted our students to work on. It is quite a special text because a few years ago, I found this 1773 poem at the New York Public Library. I was doing archival research on the literature of the Canary Islands and Cuba. The Canary Islands and Cuba have a long-standing relationship from colonial times. You know, I'm not going to talk about this now, but this is the subject of my of this course that I taught, and I'm really grateful that at Hunter and in my department, I am able to create this type of courses that are innovative and creative and that relate to my research. No? So the Canary Islands literature really, the Cuban literature, begins with the Canary Islands. The first author, Silvestre de Balboa, was from the Canary Islands, and this work dates from 1608. No? So this poem in particular is entitled Bloqueo y Sitio de Atares, and it consists of 33 octaves, 8-line stanzas that describe a fictitious attack to Havana, Cuba. So what the author was trying to do here, he was writing this poem with one objective, to praise the governor of Cuba, Felipe de Fondes Viela. Well, when I found this text, I was quite surprised. As far as I can find, even today, and Jennifer tried with me too, there are no studies on this text in the public domain, and except for the one that our students did, our students' analysis for this class. So initially, I had planned to write an article myself about this, but when I was creating this course, the literature of Cuba and the Canary Islands, I thought this was a perfect text to bring to class and have my students and Germán Santana's students analyze it. So, okay, my class had 10 students at the time. This is spring 2022. Germán's class were 30 students. So what we did, we grouped one of my students with 3 of his students. Those were the groups. And then we divided the poem into sections. It was already divided into sections with 3 octaves each, more or less. And my students who study literature, right? That's what we do in our major at Hunter, our Spanish major. Our students have a deep understanding. We try for them to have a deep understanding of literature in Spanish. And his students, so my students focused on the literary analysis, and my colleague students described the historical context of the section that their group was assigned to. Now, I have to point right now that obviously COIL projects don't have to be based on rare manuscripts or unpublished work or anything. Right now, Germán Santana and I are working on a different project this semester, COIL project, and we're using a very well-known essay that we have, and we have teamed up the students for them to work on it. And we expect it to be equally fruitful, right? Because it's all about the collaboration and exchange of ideas. Next. So I introduced to you my international collaborator. I described the assignment that we worked on. And now let me present my class. Okay, this picture, not all of my students, some of my students are missing in this picture. Here, we went to a performance at the Instituto Cervantes Institute in New York. And Zaida Santana, she's the woman dressed all in black in the photo. She performed a monologue based on the experience of her own great-grandmother, who was a peasant from the Canary Islands who migrated to Cuba in the 19th century. So the reason why we went to this performance, my students and I, is because previously during the class, Zaida spoke to my students about her play via Zoom while she was in Madrid. So this was fantastic to see her perform in person in New York. Okay, next. So Julie asked me to talk a little bit about the modalities of this course in which I applied, I worked on this COIL project. So this was a hybrid course for Spanish majors last semester. It was asynchronous on Tuesdays, in person on Fridays. And this modality really works well for my upper level courses. I really enjoy it because I curate a variety of materials for them to work on Tuesdays, which are recorded presentations of mine, videos, shared writing platforms, audio applications, and then we dedicate Fridays to discuss everything that they read and viewed that week. Next. So for the COIL project, what did I use? What online platforms did I use? Well, we use Zoom for students to meet independently and work on their assignments in their groups, right? Excuse me. Keep in mind, they may not want to do it via Zoom. They may want to do it via email. So we were flexible about their what they wanted to do, as long as they try to work in groups. No? We use Google Drive to share documents, particularly my colleague Germán Santana and I, we would share our documents via Google Drive. Then Blackboard is very important for me, for my students, to upload their drafts, all the drafts that they were, after they worked with the students in the Canary Islands, and the final essay, the project. And then Manifold, Jennifer will talk about this, because this is the role that Jennifer has in this project. That's where Jennifer comes in to publish the students' commentary. Next. So I'm going to talk about these other platforms. Jennifer will talk about Manifold, but Blackboard is a fundamental tool for me, not only for the COIL project, but also my classes, because my courses are zero cost. So the materials can be found there. As you can see, well, this is just a screenshot of my Blackboard, but I structure the materials into weeks. And this is something that I learned with Julie, Xiaoshuan. My Blackboard skills have improved tremendously since I took all these courses with Julie and everybody at ACERT. So next, and as I mentioned, Zoom, I was talking about the online platforms that I've used in this course, right? So Zoom was also very, very important. Zoom is a crucial communications platform in my course. For my class on Cuba and the Canary Islands last semester, I invited several guest speakers from around the world to have discussions with my students. And thanks to Zoom, I can invite the experts in their field, and they don't require stipend. They understand that we have funding restraints, and they're very generous. And my students tremendously benefit from this, from having these experts come to my class. Here, distinguished professor Alicia Llarena is discussing one of the writers that we studied in class, Mercedes Pinto. I don't have a picture here, but Germán Santana came to our class and gave a wonderful presentation about the historical context and the historical relationship between Cuba and the Canary Islands. Next. Here is Saida, the performer I showed you earlier in the picture. She's an actress, playwright, and professor. And in this slide, you can see her talking to my students. She's talking about her play, the play that she performed in New York later, about her great-grandmother who was a migrant from the Canary Islands who migrated to Cuba. And she talks about her experience. Next. Here, this is not Zoom, because Zaida Capote is a Cuban professor, a literary critic from Cuba. And Cuba, the Wi-Fi is not reliable, so she preferred to send a recorded presentation, and my students wrote questions for her on a Padlet. Next. So I just spoke about the modality of my class. I spoke about some online platforms that I use in my class. Now, regarding the actual assignment, right? The project, a very important component for this course is a research guide. Jennifer Newman created our own research guide for the COIL assignment, which helped us tremendously in their analysis, the students. And I'm going to say it again, Jennifer is a jewel for all of us in the Romance Languages department. And, her contributions have been tremendous, from individual attention to students' research when she meets with them, to joint publications with faculty, which includes the prestigious MLA Prize awarded to Jennifer and Julie this year. It's amazing, no? Next. So also my colleague Diana, who's here, hi Diana, my colleague Diana Gonchado really helped me, because the poetry of the 1700s is not my area, and I have tons of textual commentary models for my students, but they were not so much geared for this type of poetry. So Diana helped me by providing a model for literary analysis that really worked for the students and for this particular poem. Mil gracias, Diana. Muy bien. Next. So these are some, Julie asked me to think of tips or to think of, the strategies that I use for this project, which I am going to continue doing this, not only with this professor, but I really am going to try to pair up my students with other colleagues in different countries, in Latin America, in Cuba, in the Canary Islands, in Spain, mainland Spain, whatever I can get an opportunity, no? So the first thing is identify international collaborators, no? Select an assignment, project, activity. Of course, that's the first step, no? To decide what you're going to do with your students. In my case, as I mentioned, I grouped students in teams, but there are many types of collaboration, no? I ensure, very important, to make sure that they can communicate with themselves. And I ensured that the groups had each other's email address. Now, if a student comes and say, I feel uncomfortable connecting with a student across the ocean, that's fine with me. I would assign that particular student an individual, a final essay that would be more traditional. But it didn't happen. My students were thrilled to work in teams with someone from another country. So, but flexibility is very important. Very important as well is to provide the expectations, no? What our expectations are for this assignment, because there are many variables, no? I mean, students not only have different schedules when you create team work here in the US, they don't only have different schedules, they also have different time zones. So, it's really useful to give students, it's important to give students their expectations that you have for your assignment. Also, the research guide that Jennifer created for us, either a research guide or a sample work or a rubric, because oftentimes it will be the first time they ever do anything like this. Collaboration, yes, but usually you do with someone sitting next to you. So I wasn't sure how this assignment was going to turn out. So what I did was I gave the option to either submit the essay in combination with the historical analysis of their teammates, or just submit the literary analysis. But in it, they had to discuss how the collaboration was with their Spanish partners. I believe that flexibility is crucial because this was a new attempt for me, and honestly, students loved it. I mean, they really enjoyed this collaboration. And next. So here is a sample of students' work. No, they submitted it via Blackboard. My students, some of them submitted the combined essay, some of them submitted just the literary analysis, which is fun. That's what they needed for the grade. But as I mentioned, the introduction had to describe their experience working with students from Spain. And they were very positive about it. Next. Now, this is the best part. This is the best part. Jennifer and I are currently trying to obtain funds to take my students to the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria this July to do a public event as a culmination to the COIL project. Now, the idea is that my students and some of the Spanish students, they were 30, so it cannot be all of them, will discuss the experience in an event, conference, and a lecture at the University of Las Palmas. And once we're there, we plan to do different activities throughout the city, related to the history, like visiting the House of Columbus. The Canary Islands was the last stop that Christopher Columbus did before arriving into the Caribbean in 1492. There's a lot of history there, colonial history, and also pre-colonial history. Next. So Manifold is the platform that Jennifer is going to discuss, because this is where the publication of my students' analysis will be published. Next. And I want to finish remarking something, is that COIL projects benefit students because they foster intercultural communication and autonomy. No? They can be interdisciplinary, they are collaborative, obviously, and I honestly believe that undergraduate research opportunities are an important and necessary part of the undergraduate student experience. The Hunter College mission talks about citizenship, no? And COIL projects embody that mission in creating global citizens.
So my name is Jennifer Newman from the Hunter College Libraries. I'm the English and Humanities librarian, so I work particularly with the English department and with Romance languages. And so I'll keep my remarks very brief, but I thought I would address briefly what I contributed to Maria's project, and also just, some overview of how you could get a librarian involved in your COIL and how that might benefit the students. So how might a librarian support a COIL? So as Maria mentioned, a librarian can provide research support for the students. In particular, this was a difficult task or a challenging task for students because they were working with a text that has never been studied. So as an undergraduate, what do you do when usually you find secondary sources on the topic that you're studying, right? So I provided a research guide, some strategies for the kind of research that the literature students would be doing. But librarians can also host in-class workshops. We can also do research consultations with your students, small group consultations. I find that it works sort of like therapy, that the students learn by talking out what they're doing. And, as a librarian, you almost don't really have to guide them. You just have to be, an ear to listen. But also librarians we love to collaborate on assignment design. In particular, Maria and I collaborate a lot on original research for undergraduates. So like Maria, I kind of have an interdisciplinary tack. So I have a doctorate in Italian literature, but from a department that was really a cultural studies department. And I don't really do literature. I kind of do everything all together. And, we both commented that literature students often they do kind of the same assignment over and over again. They're always doing literary analyses, and we like to collaborate to get them to do something new and original that doesn't rely so much on secondary sources. So we bring students into the archives. We collaborated on this project. And then finally, librarians often can give you suggestions for tools and platforms for the projects your students will be doing. And so I will talk about that briefly. So some tools that I've used, that others have used, that kind of promote collaboration among students. So very quickly, there's the Zotero Citation Manager. So we all love citation manager software to kind of keep lists of the citations that we found of our research, but also Zotero is really great because it can be collaborative. You can make a public or private group library, they call it, which is a shared bibliography. So students can become members. They can make a whole class group or a small group and contribute their research and take notes on their research and tag and organize what they found. I've had the fortune recently to have been a faculty fellow at the Graduate Center's OEPI, which is the Open Education and Publishing Institute, where I learned a lot about the CUNY Academic Commons and Manifold. So the Academic Commons, if you don't know it, is a WordPress-based platform that you can use to create a public or private group very briefly go to their website. So you can create a group, which are spaces with a discussion forum, shared files, email listserv. You can create a site that you can teach on. So one of the reasons I bring this up here is that when you're working across institutions, right, you maybe can't get students from another institution into your Blackboard. The Academic Commons, anyone with a Hunter email can sign up, but you can also work with the folks who administer this at the grad center to get guest access to people from other institutions, right? So you can also make a course site to teach from and or a group. And so what could use the Commons for? So students can use a group to share materials on a site. They can share and discuss their works in progress or their finished projects. You could also have them build a website together, create their own blog site as part of a COIL or not as part of a COIL in your other classes. And I know that several instructors at Hunter do this. And then finally, so Manifold is the platform that we'll be using for this site. And I would really love to be able to share our completed course site with you today, but it's still a work in progress. But again, Manifold is another publishing platform that was created at the Graduate Center. And it's a platform that you can use to create an OER course text. You can use it to collaboratively annotate texts, including your course textbook, or you could even use it to publish student work as an ebook. And because I can't share our work in progress, I just wanted to highlight one of the other OEPI faculty fellows. So this is for a course taught by Dr. Aaliyah Tyner-Mullings at Gutman Community College. So she used Manifold for her media studies course, and she created her course textbook. So she gathered together some OER materials. And then at the end here, the students have contributed chapters to the work. So this course was about Disney films, right? And so we've created a section of the textbook, right, that is student work. And every semester, new students will add to this growing body of work. You can also use the site, as I mentioned, to annotate. So just as an example, so here is the course text. Students can sign in and highlight and annotate. So our project will feature Maria's transcription of this poem that is otherwise not available. It's only available, as far as we know, in manuscript format. And we will use the students' work to annotate the poem and to embed other resources into the Manifold site.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're not super hungry. I'll try to do my best to be short. I'm an adjunct lecturer for Hunter. I also teach for NJCU. I teach for Ivy Tech, where I used to live in Indiana. English composition, public speaking, interpersonal communication. So I literally applied COIL in all these sections, and it really works so well. I am not sure if you guys know where COIL comes from. The person who is the founder is John Rubin. It used to be, the cradle used to be a SUNY in Albany, but now they changed a destination. It's another small place upstate New York. It's preferably, it would be nice to connect with the person you already know. I actually got in touch with a person. She used to be my colleague when I used to be a student. We didn't see each other for 20 years. She immediately accepted the deal. Originally, I come from Montenegro, former Yugoslavia, and the lady was from former Yugoslavia. Now she's dean for English and translational studies in Montenegro. She accepted that, and then another colleague of hers, she wanted to also be with us together. So three of us just started from scratch, and it worked so well. It was pretty dynamic because it was something I have never done before. We had 90 students. I was sending feedback to all of them, to their students, because I was so excited, to their students, to my students. It was so time consuming, but it was fruitful in the end. We also combine groups from all institutions. For instance, there were two different universities combining with LaGuardia. I used to teach for LaGuardia, public speaking. So I took that class and I pair my students with students from University of Donja Gorica, Montenegro, where my friend comes from, and University Mediterranean, another private institution in Montenegro. So with three of us made a triangle, and we had about 90 students. It was a big group, and we literally put in each group combination of all students. So in my students work, think, pair, and share with students from two different universities. So they had to do all together on different themes. This time we talked about tourism in New York City and tourism in Montenegro. And we have different texts and videos that have to decipher and compare and analyze. So that time we didn't have annotation tools. They will just work together in WordPress. The good thing about WordPress is free of charge still. Slack is not, unfortunately, and I have mostly all my projects on Slack. What I like about Slack is they were able to text. I was able to put channels one by one, and I can show you briefly how that looks like. And now when I want to retrieve those projects, they're all locked. So I have to figure out with administration or CUNY if they will allow us to pay subscription if it's reasonable price, so the students can use that, because it was one of the best platforms I used. This is WordPress, and the first project we did for students, by students. It was all about them. They picked the text, they picked the themes. So here is like the homepage the students have done. So this is St. Stephen Island in Montenegro, this is New York City, and this is Durmitor in the mountains, because we have students from the up north in Montenegro, and we also have students from seaside. So they were all together in all these groups, and we put them based on their interests. So we put them in small groups, and each group had a different theme: food in New York City and food in Montenegro. So what I have done, like they were blogging together. So food in Montenegro, students will actually experience, and they will go literally, some of them will go interview restaurant owners. Some of them will actually go and make food from scratch, or go and ask aunt or grandma to make it for them. And they will take a picture, explain each meal. So the same thing, students from America, they have done something similar, but mostly what they have done, they will say, okay, we took a picture of McDonald's. And McDonald's is staple of American, oh, it's kind of funny. So it is also, it really, COIL really helps increase self-awareness, also show students that how cultural identity matters, empathy also, as we can see how empathy works during the pandemic, because we also have the pandemic, impact of pandemic in Montenegro, America. We also did a small project Hunter students did with South Africa. That was last semester. It's a little pilot project. And we have done cultural identity, diversity in cultural identity in South Africa and America. And it was very nice. And we use Slack and Perusol. So now I cannot show you because it's locked. But hopefully we have a workshop, I will show you that. These are different communities that you can reach out. I have some links. I can share this presentation. So I have a lot of research resources that you can use to know more about all these steps, how actually COIL works. This is the best part about learning more about the world. It is true that New York City is very multicultural. We have over 800 languages speaking, but my students were so amazed how much they didn't know about the rest of the world, even though they did know from books and literature, until they got together with students, especially during the pandemic time. They were so supportive. They saw the huge difference, nightlife there and here, access to food and Wi-Fi, problem with electricity. Like in South Africa, even now, they don't have electricity from time to time, and Wi-Fi. They will go to Starbucks to get connection to write down an email or send application. So it was very challenging. Exploring global ethics is also important. Ethical tourism, for instance, COVID, how measurements were implemented there comparing to us here. we are so overwhelmed with information on mainstream media. But then you will see from the firsthand experience with these students what's happening in their lives. You will see a totally different story. So these personal narratives were so powerful, and we have in these reflections when we're collecting qualitative data, we saw how students actually realize they are so similar more than different in the way how human beings work. But then mainstream media and foreign politics really make us all divided and segregated. And students were so amazed how much they found out about themselves. Like, wow, we didn't know, it's so similar. And they have big bias about other countries and cultures. So that was kind of big revelation for them. So the best part about COIL really, you can implement in every single class. And it's interesting, I use public speaking. I included public speaking versus like logistics and applied sciences and maritime studies. You will think, okay, no common ground. What is that? But we did find out some themes that it's like every educator will definitely include in the class because it's necessity to talk about cultural awareness, gender identity, there's ethics in the world to make us aware where we are, who we are. And I feel that you can find that common ground in every single class. And it's nice to, like Maria said and Jennifer, multidisciplinary is the key. So I'm really rooting for that, to not to be afraid of accepting challenges. And I'm here to help you as well in case you want to take advantage of this. You can implement this in your course syllabus as a part of the course syllabus, but you can also make from scratch completely different design of COIL. The good thing, what I've noticed that worked for my classes, I actually gave 20%, 25% of participation grade for COIL. So it really boosted in the end grade of our students because they participated so well. So first step, identify the course learning objectives in Haze by COIL. I have those sample paper syllables. I can show it to you. Maybe now it's too fast, but I can do it. Eventually, we can make another workshop. Step 2, get to know your COIL partners. So I did have also experience with students, with international partners that I have never knew before, and it really worked. But it actually better worked than with my real partner that I knew, because she was super busy and I had to do her job. So sometimes it can happen like that. So it's nice to really find the time to work together, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because I ended up working alone. So that was like too much. So it's nice to have this expectation laid out right at the beginning. So don't be surprised in the end. So step 3. So this is the best part. I really like that I did have time. We did find good time to sit down via Zoom and create this design together. So if you have that course, it really works so well and fast. You have to find a common ground. You can all figure out, okay, what specific material you can include. You can do videos, you can do scholarly articles, you can do a piece of literature, but it has to be something that really matters for all of you. And I didn't have no problems with that part, really figure out everything. I can show you just briefly what some of my students have done. So this was during the pandemic, but this is what they have done together. So they created this sign. So this is how that Slack looked like. That's like one of these, just screenshot one of our projects. And you can see engagement of students and us professors together. So it's visible. And plus they have one-on-one messaging when they want to do private conversation. So that's another thing about students and faculty members being involved in this. You have amazing opportunities. You can publish your paper. We have done that. We published a few papers. We also went to different conferences. We also included students in those conferences. These are different research outcomes. So that's the kind of thing about faculty member. What do I have from this? so you can publish your work and present to different conferences. So these are also nice opportunities for you guys, proposal submissions, video links to watch, and I can also share this in the end so you can guys see what you have